Hello, I am Vivian McGrath from vivianmcgrath.com. It's really good to see you here today. I wanted to talk today about a question that so many people ask me like regularly. How can I trust anyone ever again? If I had $1 for every time people ask me that, honestly, I'd be very, very rich. And, I speak to women every single day who've spent much of their lives repeating the pattern of relationships with toxic partners. And in those relationships, they give everything to their partners, putting them first, the partners first, above and at the expense of themselves. And with each subsequent relationship, their self-esteem is chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. And they gradually lose everything of themselves, because over the years in these toxic relationships or relationships with toxic partners, they've been abandoned over and over again, emotionally especially. They've been spending years, and I don't even mean physically abandoned. You could be in a relationship for years and still feel very lonely, even when they're lying next to you in the same bed. How many of you have felt very, very lonely within one of those relationships? And years of this, years of being in that bed next to somebody and never really knowing what true intimacy and love and a partner really is like, a life partner. It takes its toll. And so many of you get to the point where you honestly swear off dating ever again and just hide away with your cats. And many of these women come to me feeling very vulnerable, very lost, and desperate to be seen, heard, valued, and loved. And the biggest question they ask me is, how can I ever trust again? Because every time they try, one woman said, I tried something different every single time. And I was convinced that time was going to be different. They couldn't have been more different, but every time it was the same. It was toxic. It ended up being toxic, and I got hurt all over again. One woman said, I loved him and he fooled me. And many say to me, why does this keep happening to me over and over and over again? And this has gone on for years. So you can imagine now, it's been chipped away over many, many subsequent toxic relationships. You've got little self-esteem left. And they it's a catch-22. How can I trust anyone again? Yet the one thing I really, really want in life is to be loved and to have that partner to share my life with and share those experiences with. Even just the tiny little things, watching a beautiful sunset, having a picnic, whatever, just the tiny little things to share with somebody. But how can I ever experience that when I don't know how to trust anymore? So you get stuck. And they asked me to tell them, how can I detect the good ones from the bad? Does this sound familiar to you? How can I know who to trust and not open up myself to be wounded all over again? Because when you feel so vulnerable and every time you've opened up, you've been hurt, it gets harder to open up each time. So they say to me, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I just need to know please just tell me, how can I know which is going to be the right one that I can trust enough to open myself up again? But you see, you've got it all wrong. This is completely the wrong way of going about life and dating and relationships and all that. Completely the wrong way around. Because It's not about meeting someone that you can trust. It's about regaining trust with yourself after ignoring your gut instincts for too long. If you're honest with yourself, because I had to be really honest with myself, if you're honest with yourself, the red flags were there, weren't they? The red flags were there right at the start of all these toxic relationships. Maybe not instantly, because they're very good at love bombing you and mirroring you and telling you everything you want to hear and all that. But they were there. And what happened was that you overrode your intuition, which is designed to protect you. So they preyed on you precisely because they detected someone in you that would put their needs first and let them push your boundaries down one by one. Not to blame you, because this is all subconscious, but they can see it. They can pick it. They can pick you a mile away and see that you're someone who's going to put their needs first. And when they just test the first boundary, bam, you let that boundary fall down. Which is, if I show a little red flag, are you going to be the sort of woman who ignores it? And that unwittingly gives them permission to move on testing your next boundary and pushing that one down, and then one after that, and the one after that, and the one after that. And when your gut told you, if you're honest, because I had to be honest with myself about this, when your gut told you that this person was no good for you, you abandoned yourself. Subconsciously, you abandoned yourself. And I did this over and over and over again because I saw the red flags. But instead of seeing them and heeding them, I put more trust in what they were telling me was the justification for them, and then overrode my gut instincts and found reasons to ignore them. So that was abandoning myself by not listening to my intuition. And the more you do that, the more you're numb your gut instincts get. You know, your intuition, which used to be like an alarm bell, screaming out and raising the back hairs on the back of your neck that you should run a mile, it's now become like this background static that you just zone out. A bit like tinnitus, which I've got actually, which is so annoying, but you know, that little in your ear, and I just drone it out. So it's a bit like that. I'd never wish tinnitus on anyone, by the way. It's so annoying. But anyway, so that's what happens. You zone it out. And that's why with each successive toxic relationship, the toxic behavior gets worse, because the more numb your instincts get, the next person comes along, you're already numb. Then they numb it even further, and you go down that path to the point where you don't have a gut instinct anymore. No wonder you can't trust anyone. How can you trust anyone? Because you don't even have a warning mechanism anymore. You know, I graduated in my relationships when I was young, from emotional unavailability to emotional abuse to full-on physical violence. I'm not saying that you will or you are, but that's what happened to me. And that's why I'm saying you've got this all wrong, because it's not about me telling you who you can trust, or me giving you that these are the benchmarks of someone that, yeah, you're going to be okay with that person to open up and be vulnerable with. That's completely handing them all your power. You're just handing over your power to somebody else. It's not about trusting them at all. And if you really keep thinking that, you're going about it the wrong way. It's about trusting yourself. And I know that a lot of you also come to me saying, how can I trust them? I can't even trust myself. To not ignore those red flags, not ignore those warning signs and all that. And that is exactly my point. It's actually exactly my point. You know, until you can stand really strong in your self-worth, be aligned with your core values and rock solid in self-belief, and really sharpen that intuition back up again, then, and you're absolutely rock solid in your boundaries, then you will continue to repeat this pattern, and you will continue to attract those types who prey on people who are going to ignore their gut and put their needs first. So you will keep attracting that cycle over and over and over and over again. So how can you trust yourself if you don't trust yourself first? And the only way to trust yourself first is, as I say, to absolutely know who you are, be rock solid in your self-belief, your self-worth, your self-confidence, your self-love, have strong boundaries. In fact, I would say I wouldn't even date again until you absolutely have 100% certainty and trust in yourself that you are going to put you first no matter what. And I noticed that Glenn and Maria are on here by saying hello to you both. Thank you for joining me. So I hope that's helpful. You know, it's this question I get all the time: how can I trust myself? How can I trust them? Please just give me the tips of what the red flags and warning signs are. I can give you all that, but it's sort of irrelevant, because if you don't trust yourself, you're just going to ignore them anyway. You'll override them. You know, go back to your old relationships that were toxic. Go back to the beginning and just think back about how many of them that you ignored and how much you actually abandoned yourself. So I hope that's helpful. If you haven't watched my webinar, I really encourage you to do that, because this is very much, you know, the 5 mind shifts you need to make to absolutely recover from this cycle of toxic relationships that keeps you going around and stuck in this pattern. Fall back in love with your life. Put your needs first. Love you again, so that you never ignore those warning signs ever again and settle for less than you deserve. So you'll find that on my website, vivianmcgrath.com. And let me know in the comments below in what way you have been abandoning yourself, and in what ways you're struggling with that question of how can I trust myself or trust other people in relationships. All right, thanks for joining me. Thank you, Maria and Glenn. And I can see there's someone else here, but I can't see who you are. If you're in my Facebook group, by the way, and you want to for me to see who you are when you make comments or ask a question, I think you have to go to there's a link that should be in the bottom of my description when I'm on Facebook, that says I think it's streamyard.com/Facebook or something, to give me permission to see who you are. All right, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.